Hi, I'm Bill Donegan. Thank you for inviting me to speak about the Special Effect Dev Kit today. I'm the Projects Manager at Special Effect, and I work with the team to help maintain and develop our current projects and help new projects to get started, which has been the case with the Special Effect Dev Kit. The Dev Kit is a series of videos created for game developers who are looking to improve the motor accessibility of their game. This talk will share some background on the creation of the Dev Kit and will hopefully also help those interested to feel more comfortable to get started using it. To start, I'll give an overview of our work to give some background on where the Dev Kit has come from. My dad, Dr. Mick Donegan, founded the charity in 2007, the main aims being to, firstly, use customised controllers to improve the motor accessibility of video games for players, and secondly, to utilise eye gaze technology to support patients who have become completely paralysed to interact with a PC using eye movement alone. These were two fields of work that Mick had seen the need for more to be done in, and the reason he founded Special Effect. Access to video games and eye gaze technology continue to be the focus of our work today and often converge within projects. The team at Special Effect is made up of a service delivery team who carry out the project work, an admin team who help to fulfill the projects and keep things running, and a fundraising and communications team who ensure we are able to carry out our projects and also share our work by talking to game studios and others. Next, I'll briefly go through our current projects. The Lone Library helps players find ways to access and enjoy video games when using a standard game controller is difficult or impossible. As well as creating a custom hardware and software setup for players, we often make use of the features, options and settings in games that are related to motor accessibility. We provide an ongoing lifetime support as people's needs and interests change. We share information on controller solutions and options, settings and game accessibility features, often through videos on our gameaccess.info site. Our Stargaze project carries out the assessment and support of people who are in intensive care due to a serious injury or illness that results in the loss of their ability to communicate or control technology. We help people to be able to communicate in person and online and access the computer for leisure, including eye gaze technology. EyeGazeGames.com is a website of browser-based games that we have created. The site aims to fill a gap for eye gaze users by providing easy-to-set-up games which are accessible to a wide range of users on a wide range of eye gaze systems. We created a user interface with Kirsty McNaught called iMine. To enable eye gaze users to play Minecraft, we provide support for individual players and offer periodic support and updating of the software itself to enable iMine to continue to be successfully used. Bubblebusters helps children who are in isolation for extended periods with cancer. A telepresence robot is used to take the child's place in the classroom, allowing them to hear, see and speak to their friends and teacher from their home or hospital bed using a tablet. Within the project we are also exploring offering access to telepresence devices for those using assistive technology such as eye gaze. Because of our work in both access to video games and using eye gaze, we are sometimes approached by hardware, software and game developers looking for feedback on the development of their products. Some examples we can mention include the MyGaze Assistive Eye Gaze Camera by SMI, the Xbox Adaptive Controller, Logitech Adaptive Kit, and the game Sea of Thieves by Rare. We both share the knowledge of the team and arrange for those we work with to speak directly to developers as appropriate. We'll cover a couple of examples of how we have supported game developers to improve the motor accessibility of their games. We worked with Co-op to add a mouse accessibility support mode to their game Nog on PC. It is a puzzle game that requires you to explore virtual toys. Co-op added a mode that allows players using a mouse or assistive cursor control devices, such as eye gaze, to interact more easily with the game. For instance, you need to rotate the monsters back and forth to complete puzzles on either side of them. By default, use the right mouse click, but with the mouse accessibility mode enabled, you can move your cursor below a monster and an interface will appear allowing you to click an arrow instead. This removes the need to change between click types when using a device like eye gaze. Similarly, to remove the need to drag items, the mode allows you to click once to grab an item, then click again to let it go, instead of holding click down. To remove the need to use the escape key to open the menu, an on-screen menu button was added to the top left of the screen, again keeping the controls to cursor movement and a single left click. In addition to the launch options which helped inform players of the mode, they also published some information on the update online. They said, Over the past year, we've been working with Special Effect. We're happy to announce an accessibility mode for Nog. Launching the game in this mode changes the interaction model. You click once to grab an object, then click again to let it go. It's a subtle change, but it allows players using assistive point-and-click devices, such as eye gaze control, to more easily interact with the puzzles we created. The next example is Sea of Thieves, which Rare added many accessibility features to following its release. Certain actions, such as dropping the anchor, loading a cannon, or repairing the hull, require players to hold an input down for the duration of the action. They added the Reduce Hold to Interact option that allows players to complete these actions with only an initial press of the input instead. You wait for the same duration for the action to complete, but don't need to hold the input for that duration. They also added a Sticky Radial Items option, which allows players to use the left stick direction to highlight an option, then release it if they wish, and the option will remain highlighted until they confirm selection, rather than needing to maintain a hold of it as is the default. They also added the Play with a single analog stick option, where you can use just the left or right stick rather than both to look and move. Additional associated options were also added to accompany this option to use it successfully in-game. James Thomas, who is the lead engineer at Rare, said of the settings, "On Sea of Thieves, we worked on reducing input complexity when sailing the seas. This includes toggleable menus, auto-movement, auto-completing actions, and a single stick mode. Special Effect provided valuable guidance and feedback as we strive to improve accessibility at Rare." After we reached out, they offered initial suggestions, other games to look at for examples, and valuable feedback on pre-release versions. Hopefully that overview of our work has given some background into where Special Effects experiences stem from with our day-to-day work at the charity. Next we'll move on to the dev kit itself and why we made it. There were two main reasons we created the dev kit. One was that we felt it was an important time to share what we have learnt through our work when accessibility in video games is gathering so much momentum. The second was that we wanted a resource that the team could use when supporting studios with improving the motor accessibility of their games. We wanted to use videos to help show examples of how other developers have overcome accessibility barriers in order to help them to understand these, to be able to use similar solutions, or become comfortable enough to create their own accessibility solutions for their own games that they know inside out. The first step in creating the dev kit was to decide how to structure the site and videos and group associated options, settings and gameplay features together, which my colleague Francis worked on creating. The next step was to choose and divide game examples into these. Francis then created the scripts to fit the games we had chosen, and we had a working rough video edit of the game capture, with placeholder voiceovers by our colleague Liz, to get a feel for the flow of each video and how clearly the examples worked. We then worked with Cara, who is the video maker who creates the game access videos for us on the final videos. There was then a lot of back and forth swapping out clips and games, adjusting the script right until the very end. As mentioned, we wanted to group associated accessibility related features together, so we ended up with 7 topics. Input devices looks at how the devices you decide to support and how they are handled will greatly affect which players are able to play. Action mapping covers ways that allowing players to configure the specific input that's mapped to each action lets them use the inputs that are the most accessible to them. Input interactions looks at the importance of allowing players to configure the interactions where possible and to provide alternatives to more complicated interactions that some players may find difficult. Analog sensitivity looks at how letting players configure the relationship between the value the game receives from the analog input and the value the corresponding action takes lets players customize the game's controls in a way that works for them. Information covers how the amount of information you're able to provide and how that information is presented will affect how easy it is for the player to find a way to play that suits them. Assistance looks at how, whilst games are often designed to have a certain level of challenge, allowing players to enable optional assists that alters the experience allows players to find a suitable individual level of challenge. And simplification covers how, beyond assisting the player in various ways, you might also provide options that simplify the game experience. Each video shows examples of how game developers have created solutions to improve the motor accessibility of their games in ways related to that topic. Each topic can be watched as one full-length video, which includes all of its modules, which are like chapters. They can also be watched as separate modules, which are accessed from the menu. Having modules available as standalone videos allows us, and teams within studios, to point others more directly to a specific area related to their game or a developer's role within a team. To show how we use game examples to illustrate an area of motor accessibility, I'll finish with an example module, which is the Automatic Analog Actions module from within the Simplification topic.
Automatic Analog Actions. Allow players to automate certain analog actions in a specific or optimal way. In a similar way to automating digital actions, analog actions can also be automated. Analog actions, however, can take any number of values, so you will need to decide how best to automate them given the current actions available in your game. You might decide to let players configure how analog actions are performed in a specific way, or you might have them be performed in an optimal way instead. For example, you might let the player move on a set or predetermined path to reach a particular destination. Once activated, the game will adjust the player's movements to keep them on the path. In Red Dead Redemption 2, you can set a waypoint on the map and hold a button to have the character automatically follow roads and paths to get there, while in cinematic camera mode. In Forza Motorsport 7, the highest level of steering assist will guide the driver's steering to keep them near the optimal driving line. Though it won't alter the path in response to other vehicles, it can allow for races to be completed without the player having to manually steer. In a similar way to this, you could also have an option to alter the path of the player to avoid obstacles or areas that might slow them down. If the player is going to collide with something and might not be able to move an analog input quickly enough to avoid it, have the player automatically steer around it. In Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, enabling smart steering will mean that when the player nears the edge of the track or an area that will slow them down, the smart steering will activate and alter the path of the player to keep them on the track. Some games, third-person games in particular, have an action that automatically recenters the camera with the press of a button, which usually adjusts it to face the direction the player's character is facing. This might make handling the camera easier in some situations, as the camera can now be partially controlled without the need for an analog input. But as with digital actions, you could also automate analog actions in response to other actions. So as an alternative to resetting the camera manually, you could have the option to have the camera automatically adjust itself when the character attacks, for example, like God of War allows you to do. Or perhaps you might continuously update the direction of the camera to point in the direction that the character is moving. Spyro Reignited Trilogy has the option to change the camera from passive to active, which means the camera will continually readjust itself to face the direction Spyro is moving. Including this option in third-person games can be especially beneficial for players who have difficulty using two analog sticks at the same time. The Last of Us Part 2's camera assist option will reorient the camera in the direction of the player's movement, and also allows you to limit the assistance to a single axis if preferred. Though less common, you could also automatically move the camera in a first-person game. Sea of Thieves, for instance, has an auto-center camera option that automatically returns the camera to the horizon after a specified delay, minimizing the amount that the player needs to manually move the camera. As with automating digital actions, another benefit of automating analog actions might be to prevent the player from having to perform otherwise complex input interactions. In Outer Wilds, if you enable the autopilot feature, it can then be used to travel to a planet in an optimal direction and at an optimal speed throughout the journey. The player locks onto the planet they want to travel to, activates the autopilot, and the ship then automatically adjusts various aspects of its motion to arrive at the planet. This replaces what might be a set of complex analog movements with a single press of an input. This module is a part of Simplification. Discover other modules in this topic on the Special Effect DevKit website at specialeffectdevkit.info.
Hopefully this talk and watching that example module has given you some background to the Special Effect Dev Kit and help you feel more comfortable to start using it if you're interested. You can visit specialeffectdevkit.info to do this. Thank you very much for your time.